Someone's voice woke up Blair. He slowly opened his eyes and everyone around him immediately burst into laughter. One of the students asked how such a stupid idiot is still studying here. Blair gets scolded again. Blair scratched his head and thought, where is he? This is a dream. The girl sitting next to him whispered that teacher Brittany was calling him again. Blair turned around and saw his teacher behind him. She leaned over and asked displeasedly, did he sleep so soundly that he already forgot where he was? Blair looked at her and thought, is this the teacher? His teacher pulled his ear and said that he knew that she couldn't sleep in her lessons. He must know how necessary mathematics is. She picked him up and told him to go answer. Blair walked up to the board and thought that he seemed to be faced with a very difficult problem. The problem on the board consisted only of single numbers that needed to be added. The teacher noticed that Blair was standing still and told him to solve this task at home. Tomorrow before class he would show it to her. This will be his punishment for sleeping in class. The children laughed and said that this idiot would not be able to solve this problem in 3 days. Mathematics is one of the most important sciences. Such an idiot cannot have the ability to do it. Blair smiled and started writing something, and his teacher thought, is he so confident? Like a scientist rich in knowledge. Blair wrote back and the teacher thought it was impossible. Blair turned to the teacher and asked if he could go to the toilet. She allowed it and the children asked in surprise, was he able to solve the problem? He clearly wrote a random number. The teacher disagreed with the students and said that the answer was absolutely correct. Blair left the class and surprised exclamations began to sound behind him. Someone exclaimed, how can this be? Even the teacher took several hours to solve this problem. Blair thought that this wasn't even an arithmetic progression problem. He moved. Chen Luo is an ordinary mathematics teacher who has completely devoted himself to this science. After graduating from university, he worked tirelessly as a teacher for many years. Next year he plans to receive a higher academic title, and at such a key moment he moved. He only took a nap during the exam, so why did he move to another world? It's not scientific. They don't live in a comic book. Maybe Newton can help him. He moved into the body of a student named Blair, but he is a complete zero in mathematics. The whole class calls him a fool. Based on the situation that just happened, in this world mathematics is highly respected as a science, but their level of knowledge is quite low. Even a student from elementary school can easily find the answer to such a problem. But in this world everyone can only add numbers one at a time. Since he can't solve the displacement problem, then he will become the best mathematician in this world. Chen Luo will rise to the heights of science even in another world. Suddenly a girl came out from around the corner and they ran into each other. They both fell to the floor and Blair apologized to her, but suddenly he saw that he was hovering over her and she looked at him indignantly. Blair quickly pulled back and gave her a helping hand, then looked away and said that he didn't mean for this to happen. The girl suddenly jumped to her feet and said that it was him again. Blair pointed a finger at himself in surprise and asked, does she know him? She shouted that of course she knew him. It was he who pushed her at the entrance ceremony. Because of him she ended up in this position. He embarrassed her in front of school. She remembered his face forever, but this time he specifically ambushed her. Blair looked away and thought, does he seem to be in trouble? What's happening? But wasn't she the one who crashed into him? He replied that he was not guarding her at all. Besides, wasn't she the one who bumped into him? She told him to stop, then she started making some movements with her fingers and spoke to the element of fire, telling him to listen to her order. Nothing happened and then Blair exhaled and said that she was so naive. He started waving his hands and asked, does she think she has magic? Let her look at him, ancient god of darkness. He started fooling around, and then the girl's spell worked and fire appeared in her hand. Blair stopped and then the girl attacked him, telling him to get it. Blair thought, how could he forget? Isn't magic a prerequisite for moving to another world? He just moved to another world, and they are already throwing fireballs at him. What should he do? He asked her to wait and the girl said that he was shameless, let him receive punishment. Blair thought, this means how? He bowed sharply to her and said that he was very rude. He asks her to accept his deepest apologies. He thought that a real man can always adapt. The girl stopped abruptly and chuckled questioningly, and then the fire in her hand disappeared and she said that he should not think that he could apologize and that's all. Suddenly she saw that there was no trace of him and said that he ran away so quickly. Meanwhile Blair was running around the school grounds, thinking what is wrong with this world. Do science and magic exist together? Suddenly he felt something and thought, what is it? His head is pounding. In pain, he sat down on the ground and then memories appeared in his head. Blair wept bitterly and called for his father, and the people who came to their house reported that the general had given his life for his homeland. The man handed Blair's mother a box and told her to calm her sadness. After the death of his father, Blair and his mother moved into a modest house. The people who lived there turned to them and gossiped. One woman told her friend that they said she was from an aristocratic family. Her friend asked what kind of aristocracy is here. After the death of their husband, they became so poor that they had to work. Years passed. Joyful Blair came up to his mother and said that he had been accepted into the Shendona's academy. She said that he must study well at the academy. Blair responded by telling her not to worry, he was already an adult. His mother imagined how he would grow up and thought that he was already so old. Some days Blair spent time in the library. The old man who worked there told him not to dig around for too long. Otherwise he won't let him sleep here. Blair began reading books with the thought that he would definitely return their family to its former honor. At the academy he tried to cast a spell, but nothing worked for him and his classmates began to say that he was trying so hard but could not make a single fireball. He had no talent for magic at all. He can't even master the fireball technique. He may be from a noble family, but he is so poor that his family won't even hire him as a servant. Such a mediocre student will soon be expelled from the academy. He's also a complete idiot in mathematics. He probably didn't have a teacher in his childhood. If it weren't for the glory left by his dead father, both of them wouldn't even take him here. Let them just look at his black hair and brown eyes. He is definitely not a pureblood. All the memories came flooding back to Blair at once, and at the end he heard his own words. He apologized to his parents and said that he knew nothing about mathematics or magic. He was worthless. He returned from his memories and his classmate asked what was wrong with him. Blair opened his eyes and thought, I call her Jasmine. She is from his class. How did she find him? Jasmine smiled and said that there was a lesson on magic theory downstairs. He is okay. She held out his hand and Blair replied that he was fine. He thought that he didn't think anyone would worry about him. He accepted her help and thanked her. He thought that now he understood what happened to Blair, but now he has him. After that they went to class and the teacher said that as everyone knows, there are 4 magical elements in the world. All magic is based on them. Blair thought that in this world people are divided into natural-born magicians and ordinary people. Both magic and science are very important. This academy is a famous magic academy. The teacher raised her hand up and said that in this world magic is based on 4 elements: earth, fire, wind, and water. They are the 4 main elements. Mages use spells and hand gestures, as well as spiritual power, to manipulate the elements. This is how magic happens. But to use magic, you need natural ability. After a while, the bell rang and the students were glad that classes were finally over. Another student said that all these old people can do is lecture from textbooks. It's so boring. The teacher had already begun to collect his textbooks, but Blair approached him and the teacher asked if he had a question again. Blair said he wanted to ask, without natural abilities, is it really impossible to wield even a drop of magic? The teacher apologized and said that he had already asked this many times. The answer would not change. Without abilities, he cannot control magical elements. After that, other students began to laugh at him and said that their mediocre Blair was fantasizing again. He tries so hard in all his classes, but what's the point? If he doesn't have talent, it won't appear. Suddenly one boy put his hand on Blair's shoulder and said that it would be okay if he didn't graduate. By that time he will already be working on his father's estate. He pointed his finger at his classmate and said that he, Toby, would always share bread with him. Blair turned around and thought that he remembers this man. He is Blair's only friend. He seems to treat him well. Toby smiled and then said goodbye to Blair and Jasmine remained in the classroom. Blair noticed her and asked if she wanted to say something. Jasmine replied that this is not true. Blair thought that she seemed very worried about him. Jasmine quickly ran to the exit of the class and said that teacher Brittany told him to come to her office after class. He replied that he understood, he would go. He remained sitting in class and thought that she was so strange. He saw her several times today, but it was as if she always wanted to tell him something. Even though he has excellent knowledge in mathematics, but without the ability for magic in the magical world, it is simply ridiculous. An ordinary person from birth. Maybe they should just try it. He began to cast a spell to summon fireballs, but nothing worked for him and he thought, and what were he waiting for? He was already upset, but suddenly flames began to appear around him, then the fire became brighter and enveloped his hand. Blair looked in surprise at the flash of fire in his hand and thought, is it a fireball? But this cannot be, because this body should not have any ability for magic. He exhaled and said that this is so cool, fireball magic. He started playing with the fireball and told it to go out and play. He raised a huge fireball above his head and thought it was a real fireball. Could it be that when he crossed space, magical channels opened in him? Suddenly he remembered that he needed to see the teacher and quickly went to her. He knocked on the door and the teacher told him to come in. Blair opened the door and asked to forgive him, but suddenly stopped short when he saw that his teacher was writing something on the table while standing and Blair called out to her. She smiled and said that he had finally come. He looked at her figure and she, sitting on a chair, told him not to pay attention. She always does calculations while standing. He replied that it was okay, he was late. Why did she call him? Brittany waved her hand towards the chair and told him to sit down. Here's a pen and paper for him, let him solve this problem. Blair again saw a problem in which all the numbers were added one at a time and the teacher headed to the exit from the office, said that she would leave for a while and let him decide, take his time. Blair named the answer and the teacher was very surprised. She turned around and asked what he said. Blair replied that he said that the answer to this problem was 3160. Brittany quickly came up and touched Blair on the shoulder and asked how he did it. Even she took a very long time to solve this example. Has he really already solved this example? But this cannot be, because she chose the number 79 by chance. Blair asked, does she really want to know? Brittany smiled and asked, will he tell his teacher? She's so curious. Blair responded with a glance to the side and replied that he would tell. She was happy and he thought, is the teacher such a fool by nature? After that, he scattered all the papers on her desk and said that he saw her process of solving problems. She performs calculations by adding numbers one at a time. This is not only a waste of time, but an opportunity to make a mistake. He looked at her calculations and said that she had calculated everything correctly, which was commendable. Brittany said that this is the topic of the last lesson. In this world, the magic of mathematics is at a low level. But is this the only way to solve it? Brittany replied that she was wrong. He took the first one and said that this problem also has a second solution method. First, you need to find a pattern. He began to write down the solutions on paper and said that the first number and the last, the second number and the penultimate, and so on, so they add them up and get 80. Let her say how many numbers that add up to get 80. Brittany suddenly raised her hand and said that she understood. There are 39 of them. Blair said that's right, she's great. Let her sit down. I suddenly remembered that she was the teacher and apologized to her, saying that it was a habit. Brittany thought, did he tell her to sit down? It is a habit. Brittany went on to explain further, saying that this changed the problem from difficult addition to easy multiplication. At the same time, they should not forget about the number without a pair, it is 40. Using this method, she will also be able to find a solution very quickly. Brittany greatly admired his solution and said that it turns out there is such a wonderful way. Moreover, it seems to her that this method can be improved further. Blair said that's right, she's great. If in a block of numbers, starting from the second, each one differs by the same number as the previous one, then they can be described by one simple formula. He wrote on paper a formula for summing an arithmetic progression and his teacher was lost in thought. Blair waved his hand in front of her eyes and called out. He thought that elementary school math from his world was so difficult for this. Brittany asked if he came up with this method himself. Blair replied that something like that would be more convenient. He thought that she still wouldn't understand if he told her Gauss's name. The teacher grabbed his hand and said he was a genius. If he continues to do this, he has a bright future ahead of him. She got too close to Blair and he called out to her. After that, she quickly backed away from him and said that she was just so excited. She thought for a second and asked if he wanted to become an outstanding mathematician. Blair happily replied that he didn't want to. He wants to become an outstanding magician. Brittany tilted her head to the side and looked at him, puzzled. Then she quickly clung to him and grabbed his hand and said that he is so gifted in mathematics, this is the blessing of Minerva, he should not waste his talent. Besides, she knows that he has no ability for magic. By becoming a mathematician, he can also take a worthy position in society. In any case, he should choose mathematics, not magic. Blair threw her hand away from him and said that he still wants to become a magician. He thought that as soon as he introduced a couple of theories to this world, he would immediately become a great mathematician, and this is a fairly easy path. But he will only pass off other people's discoveries as his own and transfer the fruits of great scientists into this world. And the magic in this world attracts him much more than the glory of a mathematician. Brittany asked, since he wants to become a magician so much, can he make a bet? Blair asked what bet. She replied that there would be a magic exam in a few days. This exam will finally decide whether he can stay at the academy. Blair got a little upset and said that if he didn't pass the exam, he would be expelled. Brittany said that if he really wants to become a magician, then he must pass this exam. Blair looked up at her in surprise and she, showing him the calendar, said that they would make a bet. If he passes the exam, she will no longer persuade him. If he doesn't pass, she'll help him apply for a teaching assistantship so he can stay. But he must give up magic and help her study mathematics. How's that for him? She mentally apologized to him and thought that he would definitely lose this argument due to his inability to do magic. Blair agreed, and after that he left the office and thought that she was so stubborn, she pestered him so much. He remembered how she told him not to forget about their bet and thought that he would rather do magic. Suddenly a girl jumped out from around the corner again and they collided. Blair fell to the floor and thought that this was such a familiar situation. He grabbed the girl and thought what it felt like. He suddenly opened his eyes and saw what he was grabbing. Then the girl grabbed him by the clothes and said that he was shameless. She started using fireball magic again. But at that moment Blair had already managed to hide and she shouted, "Where is he?" Again this shameless bastard got away. Blair thought that if he hadn't run like that, he would have been turned to ashes by now. After a while in Brittany's office, the same girl was sitting in her office and the teacher, calling her Isabella, asked what happened. She has been unhappy since she came in. Isabella replied that she met a pervert twice at the academy today. Brittany asked if they have any perverts, but any pervert would be unlucky if he ran into her. Isabella replied that next time she would definitely shoot a fireball at him. The teacher laughed and said that this was all Isabella. Isabella threw a stack of papers on the table and said that they would not talk about it. She had already solved this problem. She only spent half an evening working on it, and she got it done quickly. She probably solves such problems even faster now. Brittany looked at her solution to the problem and said that she was great, she really solves faster than her, but Blair was able to complete the problem in just a minute. Isabella was surprised and asked how he could decide so quickly. This is impossible. What is Blair anyway? She had never heard of such a thing. Brittany smiled and said that he really only needed a minute. She had never seen such a solution. Now she will show. She showed her a piece of paper with Blair's solution and said that first she needed to figure out the pattern, the sum of these numbers, then they multiply the sum of the numbers by the logarithm. Here he simplified everything into a formula. Isabella looked at his decision, and then grabbed her head and exclaimed, "That means this is also possible. And this is the way this Blair came up with." The teacher confirmed her words and said that she herself was very surprised that there was such a talented mathematician in their academy. Isabella said she wanted to meet this Blair. The teacher saw her burning eyes and agreed. After that, Isabella opened the door to Blair's class with her feet and shouted, "Is there Blair in their group? She wants to meet him." Toby wanted to answer her something, but Blair pinched his leg and, hiding under the table, showed him a sign to be quiet. Toby awkwardly scratched the back of his head and replied that Blair had just left on business. Isabella asked, "Did he leave again?" She headed towards the exit of the class and said that they should then tell him when she returns that she wants to talk to him, she has business with him. Toby agreed, and after that the door to the classroom closed and Blair crawled out from under the table. There was silence in the class and everyone started throwing strange looks at Blair. Blair looked around and asked his friend why they were looking at him like that. Toby grabbed him by the shoulder and told him to tell the truth. What happened to Isabella? Blair asked, "Isabella, is this girl's name?" Toby asked, is he really interested in anything other than books and part-time work? Does he even know who this Isabella is? Blair got scared and asked who she was. Toby asked if he even knew how many fans Isabella had. If they find out that he offended their goddess, they will not forgive him. Blair replied that this is the Shindona's academy, they cannot do whatever they want. Toby said that at least he knows what their academy is called. Then let him tell you where their campus is. Blair asked, "On Baker Avenue." Toby asked, "Where is this avenue?" Blair replied that he was in the city of Yabo. Toby sighed and said that he already thought that he was pretending to be a fool, but now he sees that he really is a fool. Isabella's father is the mayor of Yabo. Blair was surprised and thought, what the hell? This is what he got himself into. He asked if he finds her and apologizes, will she forgive him? One of his classmates heard this and asked, did he dare to get into conflict with Isabella? He doesn't want to stay at the academy. Blair turned around in fear and the boy said that this was correct. Anyway, such mediocrity should not have lasted here for a couple of days. Blair thought that this guy's name was Bud. This idiot was always hurting Blair. Toby asked if he was bullying him on purpose. Blair thought that what he said was true, although in addition to magic, the academy studies mathematics, history, philosophy and more, and if he cannot become a magician, he can become a scientist and have the same respected position in society. However, in a royal-level academy like the Shandonasa Academy, graduates must have at least some magical abilities. After all second-year students will have to pass an exam, and those who do not pass will be expelled. In fact, the magic exam is quite simple, every student can pass it easily. But Blair is absolutely not endowed with the ability to magic, so for him this exam will mean the end of his studies at the academy. It's not surprising that the teacher decided to argue about passing the exam. Bud hit the table with his fist and exclaimed, is he even listening to him? He pointed his finger at Blair and said that he was an orphan mudblood. Toby rose from his seat and called out to Bud with displeasure. Then he asked, does he want to fight? Bud asked why he cares. Toby replied that Blair is his friend and his business is his business. If he wants to fight, he will show what he is capable of. Bud replied that he would remember that. Next time they will answer him. Bud and his friends left and Blair thought that although this fat man does not seem very reliable, at such a moment he showed himself to be a loyal friend. He's a great friend. He asked if Isabella bothered him, he would help him, right? Toby smiled and replied that of course he would do it, but by then he would give it to him. The smile on Blair's face disappeared and after that time passed. A few days later the magic exam came. All the students gathered on the site and the teacher said that in this exam they will test their fireball technique. Students who fail the exam cannot continue their studies at the academy. Fireball is basic magic. He thinks every student can handle this task. They will need to stand behind a line and hit the target with a fireball. They'll start with Bud. Bud stepped forward and cast a fireball spell and then extended her hand forward and sent the fireball at the target. The teacher praised him and said that he passed the exam. Linda has passed, let the next student come up. Bud looked at Blair and said that he should enjoy his last minutes at the academy. Toby got angry and told him to shut his mouth. The teacher said Toby is next. Toby stepped forward and, extending his hand, began to cast a spell. A small ball of fire accumulated in his hands and he aimed it at the target, but the fireball did not reach the target and the teacher said that he passed. Toby was delighted and the other students said that he had conjured such a small ball, he had tried so hard. The teacher looked at the list and saw that the next Blair thought that he did not have the gift of magic, he would not pass the exam, he could not even create a fireball. Poor guy, he doesn't want to expose him to ridicule. He sighed and said that the entire second year passed the exam, then he declares their test over. Bud told him to wait. The teacher looked up at him and Bud told teacher Anthony that he had missed one student. He pointed his finger at Blair and said that he hadn't passed the exam yet. Blair remained silent and the teacher asked, is this how he will pass? Bud asked, he is a student at the Magic Academy and will not take the magic exam. All Bud's friends laughed and said that this idiot would be expelled. Bud said that he can still return to the academy, maybe he shouldn't lose face. A crowd gathered around Blair and other students headed to the spectacle. Two girls ran past teacher Brittany and said that idiot from the 5th group was about to disgrace himself. Toby put his hand on Blair's shoulder and told him to ignore it. They were just out to make fun of him. Blair pursed his lips and said he'll try. Teacher Brittany came to a crowd of students and one of them asked what he thought he was. He doesn't have the ability for magic at all, so why disgrace himself? Another student replied that he probably still had not come to terms with the fact that he was untalented. The teacher told them all to calm down. After that he looked at Blair and said that he would ask again. Does he really want to pass the exam? Blair confirmed his words and said that he wanted to try it. The teacher nodded and said that whatever the result, he did well. Now he can begin. Blair stood in front of the target and sighed, thinking that although the spell and hand gestures were not needed, he would still do it for appearance's sake. He began to cast a spell and gesture with his hands, and after that the hot air scalded the students behind him, but the fireball did not appear and Bud took a closer look, and then he laughed and said that it was very strong. Blair finished the spell, and then a powerful fireball appeared in front of him and he shot at the target. There was an explosion and all the students were very surprised, including the teachers. The students continued to stand there, their mouths open in surprise, and when the smoke cleared, they saw that the target was completely broken. After this, the examiner said that Blair passed the exam. Bud looked at the broken target and said it was impossible. Toby was delighted and patted Blair on the head and asked if he had been hiding his talent all this time. After this, Anthony's teacher asked Blair to come to him and Brittany's teacher thought, how could he do this? Anthony's teacher took Blair to school and asked, so he practiced every day from books, and in the end he was able to create a fireball. Blair confirmed his words and Anthony said that magic is a gift from the gods to people. Even ancient magicians used gestures and spells to release their abilities, and those who were deprived of abilities were called abandoned gods. There are many such people, and he is one of them. But now the gods have rewarded him with their gift. This happens very rarely. In addition, today in the exam he showed excellent speed and strength. He put his hand on his shoulder and said that he had great potential as a wizard. Blair thought that last time he was persuaded to take up mathematics and now magic. Blair thanked Anthony's teacher for his praise and said that when he first came into this world, he became very interested in magic. But now he wants to go back to his world. Anthony asked, to his world? What is he talking about? Blair suddenly realized what he said and apologized, saying that he had just read books on magic and was talking nonsense. He thought he was such a fool, he spilled the beans. Anthony said that he really seemed to be putting in a lot of effort lately, and that other world he was just talking about was apparently from the legends of the Holy Master. Blair thought, Holy Master, this is probably the highest rank of magicians. Anthony's teacher said that according to legend, there was once a Holy Master who could control space, tear it apart and go to another world. But these are just legends, they all know perfectly well that the gods created only their world, no other exists. Blair asked, space management, space gap, a trip to another world. Blair grabbed the teacher by the shoulders and he called out to him in surprise. Blair exclaimed that he should become a holy master. After the magic exam, the academy announced several days off, during which time Blair looked through almost all the books on magic in the library. Mages in this world are divided into 7 levels: low, medium, high, great magician, master, grand master, and sacred master. Sacred magister is the highest level spoken of in legends. Their magical abilities are described in ancient books. Currently there are no people left who have seen them. Many books indicate that the sacred masters possess the magic of space. They could tear space and move between worlds. Although now many people think that there is no other world, and the magic of space is just a legend. But since he was able to move, he thinks that the magic of space still exists, and this is his only hope of returning to the real world. But teacher Anthony does not believe in the magic of space, so he will not receive new information from him. The old librarian tapped his finger on the table and asked, does he read everything? Blair thought it was the administrator who came. The old man said that it was time for him to work. Idlers had nothing to do in their library. Blair awkwardly scratched the back of his head and said that he was on his way. Time passed, morning came. Blair walked out of the library and thought he had licked everything clean. He didn't think it was so hard to work in the library. His lower back hurts, his arms and legs are shaking. He opened the door and went into his class, and after that the students began to whisper. One of them said that Blair had the largest fireball in the test, even larger than Anthony's teacher. Had he really been hiding his abilities all this time? Another girl said that she hadn't noticed before, but Blair is quite handsome. No wonder Isabella came. Suddenly Blair noticed Isabella and thought, what is she doing here? Isabella sat in his place with her feet on the table. He immediately turned away and mentally told her not to look at him. Isabella jumped up and said that she didn't know he was the same Blair. Blair turned to her and told her to listen to him. It was just a misunderstanding. Isabella called him a pervert and told him to shut up. After that, her hand caught fire and Blair asked, "She's not going to do it right here." Isabella cast a spell and Blair covered his hands, cursing. Then he opened his eyes and saw that Brittany's teacher grabbed Isabella's hand and prevented her from doing this. She asked why she uses magic in the audience. Isabella told her to listen, it was all him. Brittany raised her hand and told her to be quiet. She called out to Blair and said that she was just looking for him, let him follow him into the office. Then she called out to Isabella and said that she would go too. Blair shrugged and thought, what should he do? He has no choice. After that, they both left the classroom and silence reigned between the students. Bud thought that Blair was just an idiot. What happened to him? Meanwhile, in Brittany's office, Blair said that he accidentally bumped into Isabella. He really wants to apologize, let her forgive him. Brittany said that everything is cleared up, she can trust him, he did it by accident. She called out to Isabella and said that she should not argue. Isabella replied that if she said so, then she would forgive him. Brittany told Blair that she saw him on the exam and he exceeded all her expectations. He won the argument, she will no longer insist. But can he tell her how he did it? It was the first time she had seen how a person who did not have the gift of magic suddenly acquired it. Blair replied that he was just lucky. By the way, he has a question for her about magic. Brittany smiled and said that if he didn't want to talk, then she wouldn't force him. Let him ask, she will help in any way she can. Blair asked, are spells and hand gestures required to release an element? Isabella laughed and asked, what kind of stupid question is this? Even children know this, of course, to call an element you need a spell and gestures. Blair asked, is it like this for all magicians? Are there really no exceptions? The teacher replied that even strong magicians need spells and gestures, but the more they understand the element, the less time it takes them. Magic is a gift from the gods taught people to use gestures to summon an element, and thus magic was passed down from generation to generation. To summon an element without all this, one must have divine enlightenment. Isabella asked why she answered his stupid questions so seriously. Blair looked at his hands and wondered if because he was from another world, the gods of this world ignored him. Brittany said that this is basic knowledge about magic. If he wants to become a magician, then he should first study the theory well. But she called him today on important business. She handed him a piece of paper and he asked what it was. Blair unfolded the paper and Isabella said that he didn't know that either. This is a scientific newsletter. All the most important scientific works are published here. But suddenly she was very surprised and asked, is the name of the teacher Brittany and Blair? Brittany said that she figured out the summation method that Blair showed her and she even wrote a paper on it. Since Blair put forward this method, his name should also be published. Blair thought that he did not need a name in the newspaper, it would be better if they paid him money. He worked in the library every day for pennies, he doesn't even always have enough for food. The teacher got up from the table and said that she almost forgot. She handed him the bag and said that this was a reward for publication. There were 50 pieces of silver. Let this be nothing compared to scientific fame, but let this money go to him. Blair was delighted with the reward and thought that he was dying of fatigue in the library for 2 pieces of silver a month, but here it's as much as 50. But he stretched out his hand and asked if he could take it. This is half her merit. Brittany agreed and said that was true, then she would take half for herself. She poured out half the coins for herself and said that these were his 25 pieces of silver. She thought that he was so kind, she would not offend him. Blair got upset and thought, what the hell? He just said that out of politeness. She accepted it as the truth. She still sparkled all over. With one phrase he lost 25 pieces of silver. It's time for him to learn to watch his language. Suddenly an idea came to his mind and he asked the teacher, for every article published in the newspaper you get 50 pieces of silver. She thought about it and replied that she hadn't even thought about it. It must be true that each article published in a scientific journal costs 50 pieces of silver. Blair said he had some idea then. Recently he thought that the number of a set begins with the second term and the ratio of each previous term is equal to a constant value. Maybe there is a formula for summing them up. Brittany asked, is he talking about the Routh riddle? Blair asked again, is Routh's riddle? She replied that the ruse riddle was a mathematical problem put forward by the ancient sages. Routh has 7 children, each child has 7 bags, each bag has 7 cats, and each cat has 7 kittens. Blair agreed and said that there are not many numbers in this problem. If you add them up, they can get the answer. But if there were more numbers, then in this case another solution method would be very helpful. Brittany asked, is he saying he can solve Routh's riddle using a different method? Blair replied that he had some ideas. The teacher was delighted and said that they needed to work on his method. Several hours passed. Isabella dozed off and woke up to the enthusiastic voice of the teacher, who shouted that this was incredible. He solved the riddle of Routh with one formula. His math skills are second to none. Are you sure he doesn't want to do research with her? Isabella put her hand on Blair's shoulder and said that she didn't know he was so good at math. Did he really come up with this on his own? Blair asked if she really wanted to know. Isabella confirmed his words and told her not to lie to her. Blair pointed his finger at her and said that he doesn't have any special talents, he just studies math when other people are asleep. Isabella asked in surprise, is this true? Thus, Chen Luo's geometric progression summation formula amazed the people, and his little plan goes like clockwork. Some time passed, Isabella walked along the corridor and thought that it seemed that what this pervert told her really made sense. But she doesn't know why she has some strange feeling. Suddenly she noticed him and quickly hid around the corner, thinking, isn't he in his second year? Why did he come to the third year building? Did he really decide to help other students? She looked around the corner and thought that this time she would catch him red-handed. Suddenly she saw that he was missing and thought, where is he? Meanwhile, Blair was already on the street and remembered Toby's words that there was a low stone fence behind the third year building. There was no one there, so he could safely climb over. But he won't do anything bad, will he? If anything happens, don't let him say that he told him. Blair looked at the stone fence in front of him and thought that Toby must have been talking about this place. He climbed over the fence and thought that Anthony's teacher had recently said that if he wanted to learn more about magic, then he should go to the Magic Association in Yabo City where he could find more experienced teachers. Blair looked into the distance and, seeing the city streets in front of him, thought it was interesting. Life was in full swing on the city street, sellers were selling goods, and someone was discussing something. Blair walked down the street and saw the Magical Association and thought it was so luxurious. Is this a magical association? He took out a mask from his pocket and put it on his face, thinking that he needed to be careful. He had better not reveal his identity. He walked into the Magic Association, where Jasmine greeted him at the reception desk. He explained everything to her and she asked, so he wants to find a magic consultant, right? Blair confirmed her words and thought, is this not Jasmine from his group? What is she doing here? Does she work here part-time? Jasmine did not recognize him and said that the fee for consulting a high-level mentor would be 10 gold a month, an average level would cost 5 gold, and a low-level mentor would cost 2 gold. Let him say what he wants. Blair stopped listening to her and thought, why does he have to suffer so much? 1 gold piece costs 100 silver pieces, and he now has 30. Blair headed towards the exit and apologized for disturbing him. But Jasmine stopped him and said that if he had problems with money, then he could make a subscription to their library. Blair asked, to the library? Jasmine confirmed his words and said that the library of the Magical Association contains several tens of thousands of publications on magic, and he can learn almost all the knowledge about magic from their books. It may not be comparable to consultations with a mentor, but it is absolutely free. Blair was delighted and thought, can he have a subscription? Jasmine agreed and said that he needed to provide his ID. Blair did not answer and she said that since he wanted a consultation, she thought that he himself was a magician. To make a subscription, you need at least proof that he is studying magic. Blair was completely upset and thought that it would be better for Isabella to kill him then. Jasmine said with a smile that it was quite easy to prove. For example, if he wants to prove his abilities in fire elemental magic, then he needs to create a fireball in front of an expert. He asked, can this be done here? Jasmine confirmed his words, and then looked away and said that she did not advise him to do this today. Today's expert is quite strict. They say that his pass rate is only 10%. Already 300 magicians have failed his exam. Blair replied that it's okay, he wants it today. He thought it would be difficult to climb over the fence again. Jasmine took Blair into the office and told Mr. Andre that Mr. wanted to confirm his abilities. Blair looked at Andre and thought that he was wearing a red mage robe with 2 silver stripes. He was a mid-level magician of the fire element. Andre took a sip of tea from a mug and asked what his name was. Why is he wearing a mask? Blair replied that his name was Chen Luo. He put on the mask because he received a burn while training in the fireball technique. The old man sitting next to Andre said that he burned his own face. Apparently his fireballs are not easy. Andre said his name and said that he had a strange name. Since he came to the exam at that age, then at most he will become a low-level magician. Jasmine smiled and invited Mr. Andre to go to the exam room. He did not agree and Jasmine left, but he said that they would not conduct the exam here and I needed a deposit. Let him show his fireball technique, let him try to attack him. Blair asked, here, isn't there enough space here? The old man asked, does he really think he can hurt Andre with his little ball? Since he says to attack, then let him not waste their time. Blair replied that if so, then let them judge for themselves. He began to cast a spell and gesture, and Andre watched him and said that his gestures were so sharp, he cast the spell slowly. Blair extended his hand forward and flames began to accumulate around him. Everyone was surprised, and Andre was scared and told him to wait. Blair suddenly opened his eyes and finished casting the spell, forming a huge fireball. The fireball flew towards Andre and there was a strong explosion. After a few seconds the smoke began to clear and Jasmine began to cough. The old man who was at the center of the explosion also coughed, because he protected Mr. Andre with his shield. Andre looked at the shield in front of him in fear and the old man removed it. Then he touched Andre's shoulder and Jasmine was horrified. Blair apologized and said that he thought they were ready, so he hit with all his might. After this, Jasmine gave Blair a magician's ID and a library card. Blair looked at the library card and Jasmine said that he showed great fireball skill. She had never seen a fireball so powerful. Someday he will definitely become a great magician. Blair headed to the library and, calling her by name, thanked her and said that they would see each other later. Jasmine also said goodbye to him and thought how did he know her name. In the library, Blair saw other magicians and thought that he didn't even think that there would be so many people here. He sat down at the table and began to read books with the thought that this was strange. Jasmine correctly said that there are many more books here than in the academy, and besides, the content is more in-depth, especially about magical spiritual power. The level of magical spiritual power is the main criterion for determining the level of the magician. The higher the spiritual power, the more closely it is connected to the magical element, the stronger the magic will be. Moreover, high-level mages with high spiritual power can even control the magic element of lower-level mages. This leads to the fact that during a battle between mages, there is almost no way to overcome the difference in levels. However, the books about the 4 magical elements are written rather chaotically. After all, the level of education in this world is quite low. Magicians in this world believe that the 4 elements are not only the basis of magic, but also the basis of the entire world. The remaining elements are combined into these main 4 elements in certain proportions. Of course, if he looks at all this from the point of view of modern science, their worldview is very primitive. Judging by the laws of physics, all matter consists of atoms. Atoms form molecules through covalent bonds, and through ionic bonds they combine into ions and form different chemical elements with different structures. Even high school students know that matter is made up of different elements, and the so-called 4 elements in the table of elements do not exist. But since there are magical elements in this world, he cannot find a scientific explanation for it. What if in this world he can interact with magical elements? He suddenly jumped up from his seat, startling the other library patrons, and thought that if he could create new magic. He took a library card and ran out of the library thinking that he would try this. Meanwhile, Andre and the old man were watching him. Jasmine brought 2 cups and said that this was their coffee. Andre looked at Blair and said that this Chen Luo had very low spiritual power, but he was able to create an unimaginably strong fireball. The old man said that what is even more strange is that he cannot control the summoned element. Maybe he has something they can't understand. After a while, Blair returned to the academy and climbed over the fence. He found himself in a clearing and thought that there was no one here, so he would try right here. He began to concentrate and inhaled thick smoke. He suddenly opened his eyes and thought that he could feel and control the flow. Smoke began to emanate from his hand. He thought that he would try to direct the flow of Kai into the second element. A clot formed from his hand and he thought it was oxygen too. But is it really the element of pure oxygen? He cannot determine it by eye. It continued to form in his hand and he thought, this is it. He used the fire element and thought what if it was really oxygen? But suddenly the fire went out and he said that apparently not. This is not what he imagined. What is this anyway? Some thin stream of smoke. But he doesn't believe that he can't do it. He tried again and magical energy began to gather around him. From this cycle the glass and all the other fragile things in the academy began to crack and Brittany, who was working at the time, felt energy fluctuations and looked at the cracked window, seeing an explosion behind it. Meanwhile, smoke began to rise in the forest and Blair began to cough. Within seconds the smoke began to clear and Blair thought it was good that he had reacted quickly. But suddenly he got a little scared when he saw a large depression in the ground and thought that it was due to an explosion. Everything here was completely burnt. When flammable substances combine with air, they produce carbon dioxide, water and sulfur dioxide, which burn. Complete combustion releases the entire heating value of the fuel. It seems that this oxygen is even purer than he expected. Suddenly Blair heard the voice of a student shouting, "What happened there?" Blair started to run away and thought that he didn't think there would be so much noise here. He needs to get out of here. The student called out to him, but Blair ran on and thought that he had made a little noise, but it seemed that he had created something worthwhile. The next day he sat in class and dozed off, thinking that he would never study all night again. But suddenly Toby put his hand on his back and asked, "Does he know what happened at the academy last night?" Blair replied that he slept like a log last night. "What's happened?" Toby said that last night there was an explosion near the 3rd-year building. All the windows were broken. The academy is investigating. He thinks it was some high-level magician. He didn't see what was there now. A magician of no less than a high level definitely possesses such power. But why would a high-level magician do something like this at the academy? Blair replied that he did not know. He had never even seen such magicians. Toby asked how could he not see high-level magicians? Isn't Brittany's teacher a high-level magician? Blair was very surprised, and after that he knocked on the door of Brittany's office and she opened it for him. She said he was just in time, she needed him. She showed him the newspaper and said that the Association of Mathematicians had already published an article about the ruse riddle. Since he proposed this solution method, his name is listed first in the authors. She congratulates him. He has solved the most difficult problem in the world of mathematics. Blair said that he came to her on important business. She asked, "Is it important?" Blair said she should let him do math with her. Brittany was surprised and asked if he didn't say that he wanted to become a magician. Blair replied that he wants to become a magician, but he also likes mathematics. He doesn't want to regret it later. It even seems to him that in a past life he was an outstanding mathematician, as great as she. She grabbed his hand and said that she was very glad to hear that. She hugged him to her chest and said that from now on every day after school they would do math. A volcanic eruption occurred in Blair's head and he quickly pulled away from the enthusiastic teacher, and she said that with his abilities, he just needs to strengthen it and he will definitely become a great scientist. Blair asked if she would help him with questions about magic. Brittany agreed and Blair thanked her and said that he was off then. After that, he left her office and Brittany told him not to forget to come tomorrow. Blair said goodbye to her, but Brittany told him to wait. She didn't say anything and Blair called out to her questioningly. Brittany thought about it and after a short pause said that she had thought about something, and he decided to study mathematics with her, not because of her help in magic. Blair realized that she understood everything and she looked at him, waiting for an answer. At that moment, different thoughts began to flash through Blair's head. What should he do? Now he will have to leave this world forever. She will rip his head off, and he wants to live a little longer. He opened his mouth and after a second asked, "What is she saying?" He just thought that since they would spend so much time together, it would be more convenient for him to ask her about magic. She walked up to him and put her hand on his shoulder, saying that she said he has a talent for mathematics and he can use it as a tool. She led him to the exit of the office and told him to go and rest, let him remember to come after class. Blair left the office and thought that this woman was both smart and stupid at the same time. The next evening he came to Brittany's office and said that he had arrived, but he stopped in the passage when he saw Isabella inside. She looked at him with irritation and asked why he came. Brittany apologized to her and said that she forgot to say that from today Blair will also be doing math with them, so let her take care of him. Isabella turned away sharply and Brittany told Blair to sit down next to Isabella. She had prepared a task for him. They threw one stone into the well, and after a while they threw another stone, but twice as heavy as the previous one. So when will the second stone catch up with the first? Isabella said that to solve this problem they would need to know the interval and Blair interrupted her and replied that the first stone would never catch up with the second. Strictly speaking, if they do not pay attention to air resistance, the large stone will never catch up with the small one. Isabella tested displeasantly and said that he doesn't even know such basic things. Brittany said that while she didn't know what he meant by air resistance, everyone knew that the speed at which a body falls is directly proportional to its mass. Isabella said that the greater the mass, the faster the body falls. This was established by the ancient sages, even children know this. Blair listened to them and asked, if the sages said so, then is it necessarily true? Have they ever seen this? Isabella asked, did he dare to challenge ancient wisdom? Brittany noticed that an argument was brewing between them and Blair said that the science should be accurate and so should the approach to it. If the truth cannot be proven, then it is not the truth. Isabella asked, then since he wants proof, can they make a bet? Blair replied that betting was an unacceptable activity for a student and he would never agree to it. Brittany told them to stop, but suddenly Isabella interrupted her and said that they were betting on 10 gold. Blair jumped up from his chair and asked, why not? Brittany's teacher will be their witness. Brittany sighed tiredly, and after that they came to the tower. Brittany held stones in her hands and said that one stone was twice the size of the other. She turned to Blair and told him to think again. After all, 10 gold was a decent amount. Blair replied that he had already thought about it. Isabella asked if he really thought he would win. Blair remained silent and Brittany said that self-confidence is good, but he doesn't need to be too smug. After that, she rose into the air with the help of the wind element and Blair was surprised, saying that this was great. Isabella said that it was a wind element flying technique, but of course he didn't know anything about it. Brittany climbed to the top of the tower, preparing to throw stones. Isabella grinned and told Blair that he would lose. Brittany then extended both her arms forward and threw the stones. They flew down at the same time and fell at the same time. Isabella looked at the stones in surprise, and Blair grinned and Brittany went down to them. She landed nearby, seeing that 2 stones were lying next to each other and was very surprised, and then exclaimed, how is this possible? Isabella and Brittany thought they fell at the same time. Brittany looked at Blair and asked how he knew that the law of falling bodies was wrong. He replied that he had read this law in a textbook and checked it with 2 stones. This is how he realized that in reality the rules in the textbooks are different. Brittany thought that truths that had been passed down for over 1,000 years could be disproven by just throwing 2 stones. And no one in 1,000 treats has done this. How many scientists don't know that the simple truths they know are not actually true? Why was Blair able to spot this so easily? She thinks it's not all about luck. She said that he probably never realized how important those 2 stones were. She thinks that in the near future, a law under his name will appear in textbooks. Blair replied that there was still a lot of work to be done in the new law of falling. And besides, it was not only his merit, the 3 of them did it. Blair thought that again he got empty glory, he would play a little on emotions. Brittany replied that it was entirely his fault, she just threw 2 stones. However, if he wants, they can finalize this law together with Isabella. Isabella asked, with her. Blair replied that he would, of course, need Isabella's help. Will she help him? Isabella was surprised and imagined them working together and remained silent. Then she thought, does he need her help? She turned away from him and said that since he said so, she would help. Blair thanked her and Isabella thought about how it would sound. Law of falling bodies. Blair and Isabella. Blair and Isabella. She pursed her lips from such thoughts and told Blair that if someone offends him at the academy, then let him tell her, she will help him. She thought that Blair wasn't so bad, he was very smart and also handsome. Blair thanked her and then extended his hand to her and she thought, what is he doing? Does he want to shake her hand? What was he up to? And why was she so upset? She asked what he was doing. Blair replied that he was waiting for 10 gold. He looked at her with a smile and thought that he was rich. Isabella understood what he was thinking about and thought that his head was full of only this. After that she gave him 10 gold pieces and told him not to count, there were exactly 10 gold pieces. Blair was delighted and thought that in one bet he won 10 gold. He became rich in one day. Isabella called out to him and said that he seemed more interested in money than fame. But it seems to her that he still does this not only for the sake of money. Blair thought about it and she asked what he wants. Blair opened his mouth slightly, but remained silent and decided not to answer anything. He remembered moments from his previous life and then closed his eyes a little and asked what she was talking about. He just wants to earn money and live better. He smiled and said that it was late, he would go, they would meet tomorrow. Isabella was a little upset and watched him go. The next day Blair lay on his desk and thought that he had a feeling that it was much more comfortable to sleep on this desk than in that cubicle. Well, at least now he has money. He must move on. Suddenly his thoughts were interrupted by a sharp crash from a hit on the table. He saw that Bud did it and he said that Phage was looking for him, but he was still lying there. Blair asked, Phage, who is this? Bud pulled him towards him by his clothes with displeasure and asked if he had completely lost his fear. He thinks that since he made a fireball, now he can do anything. Suddenly some guy came up to them and told Bud to let him go. Bud looked at the headman Phage and pursed his lips. Phage looked at Blair, and Blair looked at him and thought, is this the Phage? Phage approached him and asked if his name was Blair. He smiled and Blair said nothing, then he looked at Bud and asked, did he hear? He was told to let him go. Bud reluctantly let him go and Blair asked the headman if something happened. Phage said that he should stay away from Isabella. People like him shouldn't communicate with her. He told his friends that they were leaving and one of them asked if they would do anything to him. Phage collided with Toby, rubbed his shoulder displeasedly and headed towards the exit from the audience. Toby approached Blair and asked if he was okay. What happened? Blair replied that it was nothing, Phage and Bud just wanted to talk to him. Toby asked, Phage, what did he do to him? Blair asked, who is this Phage? Is he afraid of him? Toby replied that this is the headman, everyone at the academy is afraid of him. Only an eccentric like him, who always disappears behind books, cannot be afraid of him. Phage comes from the famous Howard family of the city of Yabo. He is the son of a Viscount. Viscount Howard is an important person in the Society of Numbers. Many teachers at the academy are also members of this society. If he offended Phage, then he is afraid he will have a hard time at the academy. He realizes that he is fascinated by Isabella's beauty, but he advises him not to neglect Phage's warning. Blair asked in what sense is he fascinated. Time passed. Blair came to the teacher's office and thought that although the power of pure oxygen fireballs was enormous, he should first summon the ball and only then extract the oxygen element. Then the ball will not explode, and his main advantage will be that he will not need spells and hand gestures. But how is it possible to assign 2 different elements at the same time? Isabella called out to him and told him that he had better solve the problem that teacher Brittany had given them. Tomorrow she will explain everything. After her words, Blair yawned and handed her a piece of paper with his decision. She was surprised and asked if he had already finished. She only got through half of it. Blair replied that everything cannot be solved in one old way, it is necessary to find original solutions. Isabella looked at his decision and asked, so it was possible to do so. He sat closer to her and asked if she could summon 2 fireballs at the same time. She replied that she could do a few. What is it? Blair asked in surprise. Several. How so? Isabella smiled contentedly and asked, what? The brilliant Blair can only summon 1 at a time. Blair scratched his head and replied that he had received many books on magic, but he had never found a way to summon more than 1 element at a time. Isabella replied that of course, because the books only contain the basics, there are no such artificial techniques there. Her father invited her to a high-ranking magic consultant, who taught her how to summon several elements at the same time. But if someone called her sister, she would help him learn it. Blair easily called her sister and the smile on Isabella's face began to disappear. She was embarrassed and asked what kind of facial expression was this. She stood up and said that let him follow her, she would teach him. After that, they entered the clearing and Brittany began to summon fireballs. She summoned several fireballs at once, and Blair was very surprised, saying that there were actually several of them. Also so stable. Isabella said that the main key to summoning multiple fireballs is the distribution of spiritual powers. Many people think that spiritual forces can only be directed to one place, but once he masters this technique, he will be able to distribute the power to different places. Every part of this force is capable of summoning an element. This way they can summon several balls. Blair asked, is it possible to summon different elements using different parts of the forces? She replied that it was a great question. In theory it is possible, but in practice it is difficult to do. It's like drawing a square with one hand and a circle with the other. Meanwhile, Bud was watching them and thought, are they really in a relationship? After that he told Phage everything and he broke the wall with his fingers out of anger and said that Blair would definitely pay him for this. Meanwhile, Blair tried to cast a spell and thought, does he need to divide the spiritual power into 9 particles? He concentrated and Isabella told him to remember that everything must be done as she says. He must share the spiritual power step by step, but if he doesn't succeed, then let him be upset. She, for example, trained for 6 months before she was able to consistently divide the power. After these words, another fireball flashed in Blair's hand and Isabella was very surprised to see many fireballs around him. She asked in surprise, how could he do this? Blair replied that he did everything as she told him. He divided this spiritual power into 9 parts and summoned a fireball. Isabella replied that she was not talking about that. She asks how could he do this right now. Blair replied that he understood the technique and was able to do it. Wasn't that the case with her? She remained silent and thought that this pervert was already a genius in mathematics. He was also a genius in magic. And who said that he was abandoned by the gods? He's clearly their favorite. She stamped her foot in displeasure and replied that of course it happened to her too. She figured it out faster. She ran away and said that she would not teach him. Let him now deal with magic himself and not ask her. Blair remained silent and thought, did he offend her again? Women are so strange. He put his hand in his pocket and felt something there, and meanwhile Brittany was walking across the clearing and thought that he had pissed her off so much. Suddenly Blair grabbed her hand and she turned around and asked what he needed. She looked down at his palm, in which there was a bracelet with a cat, and Blair told her with a smile that what he was able to learn was entirely thanks to her lesson. So he asks her to accept his gratitude. Isabella looked at the bracelet with the cat and blushed, and then said that he still has a conscience. She thought that this idiot wasn't so stupid. She snatched the bracelet from his hands and ran further, saying that the bracelet was ugly anyway. But suddenly she fell and Blair told her to be careful. She rose to her feet and then turned to look at Blair and he wondered why she was staring at him like that. What should he do? Should he come over and feel sorry for her? Won't she yell at him? She ran further and said that it was all because of him. She won't leave it like that. Blair smiled awkwardly and wondered what he did wrong. After that, he lay down on the grass and, looking at the sky, thought that if she didn't like it, she wouldn't have taken it. He spent 50 silver on it. At first he wanted to give the bracelet to Brittany's teacher, but this is better. But suddenly his view of the sky was blocked by Phage's friends and Bud said that it seemed that the elder Phage had warned him. Let him not dare to approach Isabella. Blair got to his feet and then ran away and Phage's friends told him to stop. Blair thought that he didn't see the point in messing with these guys. Bud called out to Blair and asked if he would really run away during a battle like his dad, until they kill him. These words stopped Blair and Bud told him to run. Why is he running away? He laughed and asked, did he press on the sore spot? He attacked him and said that he asked for it. He wanted to hit him, but at the last moment he pulled back and received a burn. Blair turned around and started casting fireballs and Bud said he was in pain. Blair said that although he was not his father, he was a brave warrior who died for his homeland. He was a wonderful father, so don't dare insult him. Did he understand it? Phage's other friends counted the number of balls that Blair conjured and said that there were 9 of them. How is this possible? They ran away and Bud asked where the 2 of them were going. Blair came closer to him and Bud got scared and told him not to come closer. It is forbidden to fight in the academy. Blair asked, so he knows about this rule and attacked him anyway. Bud leaned against the wall and said he didn't need to do this. Blair continued to approach him and said that he should have thought sooner. He wanted to direct all the fireballs at him, but suddenly he noticed that there was someone behind him and Bud began screaming for help. He opened his eyes full of tears and saw that Blair had fallen in front of his feet and looked at him in surprise. He pointed his finger at him and thought, what happened to this guy? He started to run away, thinking that it didn't matter to him, he'd better run. Blair was approached by teachers and Brittany told Bud to stop. Bud raised his hands up and replied that he didn't do anything. Let them believe him, he fell himself. Brittany pulled Blair up and asked if he didn't do anything, then how did this happen to him? Don't let them think she doesn't know how they feel about Blair. Bud replied that it used to be like that, but now he didn't do anything. He will explain everything. Suddenly the old man told him to stop. Blair lies at his feet, so don't let him play the fool. Even now he continues to spoil the image of the academy. Let him go to his office now and wait for him there, he will deal with him. Bud agreed and the old man told the vice chairman of the Archie Society that it was all the fault of the management of their academy. He apologizes for this spectacle. Archie called the old man Calvin's deputy and replied that fights between young people and educational institutions are common, but, to be honest, they should be stricter with them. What is Blair's current state? Brittany noticed that Blair was weak and called out to him, after which he sighed and thought that he had gone to heaven. The heavens smiled on him. Brittany started shaking him and asked what was wrong with him. Blair replied that everything was fine until she almost strangled him. She hugged him and said it was good. Does he know how worried she was? Blair apologized to the teacher and Calvin coughed, drawing attention to himself, and told Blair that they would definitely deal with this matter, but they came differently to a very important matter. Brittany said that she forgot to introduce it to him. She pointed to the old man and said that this is the vice chairman of the Calvin Society. He must know him. Next to him is the vice chairman of the Archie community. He is from the Mathematical Society. Blair greeted them and Calvin said that he helped Brittany's teacher solve Ralph's riddle, which was very promising. Brittany said he got something mixed up. Blair solved this riddle himself. She only helped him write the article. Calvin said that by solving the Ralph riddle, they would be nominated for the Edwin Prize. This is a great pride for the city of Yabo. If she wishes, they will do their best to help her receive this award. Let her think about it carefully. The Edwin Prize is the most important award in the mathematical community. This will be a huge asset both to her and to the academy. Brittany thought about it and asked, Blair can't have it. Calvin sighed and replied that he was still too young. In the Mathematical Society, no one had the same results as her. If she says that it was he who solved the riddle of Ralph, then no one will believe it. Brittany wanted to object, but Blair called out to her and took her hand approvingly. Brittany looked at him and Calvin said that she could discuss this with Blair again. When they decide, then let him tell him. Their society will respect their decision in any case. Brittany agreed, and after that they did not leave and she and Blair returned to the academy. They walked down the corridor together and Brittany told Blair that although the solution to the Ralph riddle was not usually something unusual, its solution was a great breakthrough in the history of mathematics. It belongs to him, so a stranger should not receive this reward in his place. Blair remained silent and then said that she did not know, but this award should not be his at all. He turned around and said with a smile that, besides, she was not a stranger at all. Brittany was surprised and asked what he said. Blair wanted to answer something, but Brittany said that it was too late. Let him return soon. She still has things to do, so she will go. Blair remained silent and thought, did he say something wrong again? Blair walked longer through the corridors and saw a crowd that was crowded around the notice board. They looked at the article and thought, is there some news again? Who is Blair? Does this moron also write articles? One of the students said that this Blair again published an article with the teacher. Seems to be about some kind of mystery. Her friend said it was Ralph's riddle. She heard that many scientists could not find a solution for centuries. Is Blair really that smart? Surely the teacher helped him. Blair walked past them, covering his face, and one of the students said that this Blair must have found a way to suck up to the teacher. Blair thought he didn't expect Brittany's teacher to publish an article under two names. He sighed tiredly and suddenly heard someone calling someone an idiot. He noticed Calvin around the corner and a man who was shouting and asking, did he fight again at the academy? This man was Bud's father. He scolded his son. He asked, did they send him to the academy to start fights here? Does he like to fight? He swung and said that then today he would kill him. He hit his son with a stick and told the dean of Calvin that he would definitely teach him a lesson, just don't expel him. Calvin apologized and said Bud's behavior was unacceptable. This is a serious violation of school rules. They will have to do it. After these words, Bud's father fell to his knees and asked Calvin not to do this. The dean asked what he was doing. Bud's father started begging him and Bud told him to stop. Blair approached them and called out to Dean Calvin. The dean greeted him and he asked what happened to Bud. Bud gritted his teeth when he saw him, and Dean Calvin replied that he had violated the rules of the academy. They had already decided to expel him. Let him not worry, they will definitely take action. Suddenly Bud's father pulled Blair's clothes and asked if he was Blair. He asks him to forgive Bud. He will definitely teach him a lesson. It was not easy for them to enroll him in this academy. If he is expelled, then his whole life will go downhill. Blair looked at Bud's father with pity and then sighed heavily and told the dean that although he and Bud had problems, he asked him not to punish him so harshly. Bud was surprised and silence fell between them. The dean said that since he was asking for Bud, the academy could temporarily postpone this decision. He then looked at Bud and said that if he did something like that again, the academy wouldn't give him a second chance. Bud's father made his son bow and said that he should quickly thank Blair and Dean Calvin. Bud thanked the dean and Blair, and then bowed his head in apology. Dean Calvin said that's good, now let them go to class. Bud and Blair went to class together and Bud asked why he did that. Blair stopped at the door to the auditorium and after a short pause replied that he did not want to let his father down. Bud thought about it, and after a short pause thanked Blair again. Blair opened the door to the auditorium and Bud spoke, causing Blair to stop. Bud looked into the audience and told Blair to be careful with Phage. He wouldn't just let him go. His uncle is the deputy director of the academy. After class, Blair went to the library and thought that today was such a difficult day, and he also had to go to work part-time. At the top of the stairs to the library, he met the administrator and called out to him. The administrator asked if he had accidentally offended anyone. Blair asked what happened. The administrator sighed and said that from today he can no longer work in the library, and he also cannot live in the room. This is an order from the deputy director. After that, Blair went to Brittany's office and she said that today she wanted to take her and Isabella to a seminar at the Mathematical Society. Does he have anything to do tomorrow? He smiled awkwardly and apologized to her, saying that he had been kicked out of the library, so he needed to find himself a new place to live. She said that he should have told him about it right away. She had a spare room at home. Blair remained silent and she said that no one lived there, so he could move in with her. Blair asked, will they live together? Will this really be convenient? Brittany asked, what's uncomfortable? If they live together, they can study mathematics at any time. If he has questions, he can ask them too. Is not it so? Blair replied that it sounded good. Brittany smiled and said that if they did so, then after the ball he would move in. Blair remained silent, and then Isabella burst into the office and asked the teacher why Blair was here. Brittany replied that Blair was also going with them to the seminar. Besides, he had just lost his job at the library. From today he would be living with her. Isabella exclaimed, how can she lie with this pervert? Brittany replied that she had already told her many times. Blair was not like that at all. Isabella replied that she was worried about her. This pervert is so cunning. Blair got upset and asked why they call him that again. Brittany dragged Isabella to the exit and told her not to worry, let them go change. They need to go to the seminar quickly, otherwise they will be late. She looked at Blair and asked if he had any clothes for the day. Today will be his first time participating in a scientific seminar, so it would be better for him to wear something more formal. Blair asked, is it official? Is a magic robe suitable? Brittany replied that if he had it, it would do. In the evening they went to a scientific seminar, where many guests gathered and the teacher and her students were in smart clothes. Blair looked at Isabella in the dress and she said that they had arrived. Brittany said that this is the Howard family's estate and is also the site of the Mathematical Society's seminars. The Mathematical Society is a prominent formation in the kingdom of Dialonen, so they chose the Howard estate. Every seminar of the Mathematical Society is held here. Blair looked at the huge house and asked, is Howard Manor the Phage house? Archie stood at the entrance to the estate, discussing different solutions with his friends. Brittany walked up to them and called out to Archie, and he turned around and told Brittany and Blair that they had already arrived. Blair greeted him and Isabella, displeasedly folding her arms across her chest, thought, when did he meet the deputy chairman of the Mathematical Society? Archie told Brittany that he and his friends were just talking about her. If she wanted, he could introduce her to his friends. Brittany told Isabella and Blair to go, she would find them later. Blair and Isabella went inside the estate and Blair, looking at the table, thought that there were so many delicious things here. Rich people live completely differently. He tried the food and thought it was very tasty. He had never tasted anything like it. Isabella grabbed his hand and asked, is he a pig? Did Brittany's teacher take them with her so that he could fill his belly? He only disgraces them. Blair noticed something on the wall and asked what it was. He saw a drawing of bridges on the wall and Isabella said that this was the pride of the Howard family, the 7 bridges of the royal capital. Blair asked again, 7 bridges of the royal capital. Someone on the side asked, does he even know about this? Did he come to participate in the seminar? Phage stood nearby, leaning on the wall. He asked Blair, did he come to his house to ask for food? He will need to talk to his servants about hygiene. Since they let a person like him into the house, they clearly don't care about it. Isabella said that Blair came with them. How can he speak? Phage asked if he said something wrong. He doesn't even know about the 7 bridges of the royal capital, but he ate the most food. Isabella started to lead Blair away and told him to ignore him. They had to go. Phage got angry when he saw her holding his hand and asked Blair what was wrong. Will he still hide under her skirt? Blair turned around and asked, are there 7 bridges in the royal capital? Sounds interesting, maybe he can tell him this. Isabella called out to Blair and he said that he just wanted to hear about the 7 bridges of the royal capital. Maybe he can come up with a new method. Phage asked, new method? Brittany's teacher simply felt sorry for him, so she wrote his name in the article. He doesn't really consider himself a gifted mathematician, does he? Isabella exclaimed, what does he understand about this? It was Blair who came up with a way to solve the riddle, so his name was included. Phage replied that even if that was the case, he would see if he had any more new ideas. He turned to the rest of the guests and told them to look. Mr. Blair says that he can find a solution to the 7 bridges of the royal capital. Isabella looked irritably at Phage and one of the guests said that Blair was the young man who could solve the ruse riddle together with Brittany's teacher. Another guest said that the milk on his lips had not yet dried. How could he do this? Another guest said that Brittany took pity on him and wrote his name in the article. Now he thinks he can solve the 7 bridges of the royal capital. Brittany heard this and Phage called Blair a math genius and said that he should not disappoint them. Blair responded that he didn't say he was going to resolve this. Suddenly Brittany grabbed Blair's hand and he asked what is it. She asked in a whisper why he got into a quarrel with Phage. He doesn't know how powerful the Howard family is. If he angers them, he will have problems not only with the Mathematical Society, but also with the Academy. Moreover, mathematicians have been struggling with the solution to the 7 bridges of the capital for centuries. Phage wants him to try to solve this riddle only to embarrass him in front of everyone. Phage called out to Brittany's teacher and asked if she herself said that Blair was a math genius. Why doesn't she believe in him now? Brittany told him not to compare it. Blair interrupted her and replied that it was no big deal, he could try it out of gratitude for the fact that the headman helped him leave his position in the library. Brittany and Isabella were surprised and the teacher asked, "Does he really want to deal with this?" Blair turned to the headman of Phage and said that since he insisted so, he would solve the 7 bridges of the royal capital. Phage replied that he didn't think he was that stupid, then he'll see what he can do. The 7 bridges of the royal capital is a riddle that was invented by the first generation of the Howard family. Since then, several hundred years have passed, except for the first generation, no one has been able to figure out the solution to the riddle. Several hundred years ago, the headman of their family was a high-ranking person. He noticed that the capital had a special terrain. At that time the city was not yet so big, the city was divided into 2 islands, which were located in the middle of the river. To make it possible to move between the islands, 7 bridges were built. The islands were now connected to each other and to the banks of the river. These bridges helped residents of the capital establish mutually beneficial relationships. One day, the elder was looking at these 7 bridges and a thought came to him. Is it possible to use these bridges to get to any place, and also by going around each bridge just once to return to the starting point? When the elder put forward this idea, mathematicians throughout the kingdom began to think about this question. Many famous scientists came to the capital to find a solution. A lot of time passed, scientists put forward many theories, but no one understood how to return without crossing at least one bridge again. Until one day the elder himself found a solution. He announced this to all the mathematicians of the kingdom, and the next day everyone could see for themselves the correctness of his solution. Almost all the mathematicians of the kingdom gathered on the bridges. However, they waited until evening, but the elder did not appear. A few days later they discovered his body. Most likely, he was so excited about his discovery that he accidentally tripped and drowned in the river. The death of the elder was a huge loss for the mathematical society of the kingdom. 7 bridges of the royal capital were left without a solution. Even their Howard family still doesn't know the solution to this problem. Several hundred years have passed, a huge number of mathematicians have tried to find the answer, but no one has succeeded. Although the solution was lost, to preserve the memory of the first generation elder and the fact that he was the only one who could find the solution, their family hung this engraving in the living room. This is pride for the entire mathematical community. Blair thought that it means, as he thought, the 7 bridges of the royal capital are the same as the 7 bridges of Königsberg. Blair replied that he would not be able to find a solution, but then no one would be able to find it. Phage chuckled and then laughed harder and asked, is this his answer? Wasn't he so sure? He's just a genius. Other guests, who were waiting for the solution to the riddle, began to wonder why they had come here. The girl said that he was just a little arrogant child. Her friend asked if she thought so, but it seems to her that he is not so simple. Phage wiped away his tears from laughter and Blair said that he would not find a solution just because this riddle about the 7 bridges cannot be solved. Isabella and Brittany asked at the same time, can this be resolved? Phage asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. He can't decide for himself, so he says so. Then how could the first generation elder of the Howard family come up with a solution? Blair replied that he would then say if he could prove that he had actually found a solution. What evidence is there for this? Phage got angry and exclaimed, what does this mean? Does he dare to doubt? Does he even know what position the elder held in the kingdom? Suddenly the Viscount told them to stop. He turned to his son and said that he had told him many times that he did not need to boast about the glory of their ancestors. Phage was afraid and asked his father for forgiveness. The Viscount approached Blair and asked, is he Blair? Calvin talked about him. Blair bowed and said that it was a great honor for him. The Viscount said that he saw their argument with his son, he really did wrong, he asks for forgiveness for him. But he said that the 7 bridges of the royal capital have no solutions, this discredits the honor of their ancestors. He hopes he takes back his words. Blair replied that he did not want to offend him, but the 7 bridges of the royal capital really had no solution. Isabella looked at Blair and thought that this was the first time she had seen him be so confident. The Viscount began to get angry and asked if he wanted to check. Blair replied that he could prove it to everyone. He will explain why the royal capital family has no solution. He began to draw something on paper and said that, faced with such a difficult problem, many sages of that time decided to find a practical solution themselves. This method is worthy of respect, but if they look at the real result, then he is afraid that the answer will be difficult to find because there are too many options, they exceed human power. He finished drawing on the paper and showed the drawing to the guests and then said that in fact, they could depict a complex practical problem on the sheet as a simple numerical problem. Let each piece of land be a point. They will depict the bridge connecting the 2 sections as a line. This is the map we get. Then the 7 bridges of the capital can be simplified as follows. If they can exit from each point without repeating the pattern, then this will mean that they can return to the original place without going around the 7 bridges again. The guest exclaimed, was it possible? The girl was surprised and said it was amazing. Another girl turned to her friend and asked, so it was possible to do this. He simplified a practical problem into a drawing, It's just an amazing idea. She wasn't wrong, this Blair is really smart. Her friend just smiled and Blair said that it is obvious that other than the initial endpoint, when someone passes through a bridge onto a piece of land, they leave another bridge. Now, they will call points connected by segments of unpaired numbers singularity points. They will call points connected by segments of paired numbers paired points. Brittany said she got it. If they want to start from the starting point and eventually return to it, then they need to reach all the points. And also they need to leave all the points, so the solution will only be if all the points are paired. Blair said that's well said. That's the key point. One of the guests asked, then, the 4 points of the 7 bridges of the royal capital. Blair did not listen to the end. He confirmed his words and said that everyone now sees that these 4 points near the 7 bridges of the royal capital are singular. Therefore, no matter what method they choose, they will never be able to return to their original point without crossing the bridges again. Therefore, the 7 bridges of the royal capital have no solution. All the guests froze in shock, and after that the man said that this theory has no flaws, which means this problem has no solution. Phage exclaimed, what nonsense is he talking about? After this, the guests began to talk among themselves in surprise. So the Howard family has been deceiving them all these years. How is this possible? There is no solution to the problem. They have been deceiving everyone for so long. Phage told them not to listen to this fool's nonsense. All the guests remained silent and the girl said that she was afraid that only their ancestor elder was talking nonsense. He also deceived the entire kingdom for so many years. Phage called his father, but he did not answer. Then Phage decided to turn around and was immediately hit in the face by him. Phage fell to the floor from the blow and his father said that it was all his lousy mouth. If it weren't for him, he just embarrassed him. The Viscount told Blair that he remembered it. Just let him wait. Blair looked after the angry Viscount and asked him to wait. The Viscount turned around and Blair said that according to the rules of the Mathematical Society, he helped with Phage's question, now he must help him with his question. Is he saying it right? The Viscount looked at his son and then replied that they would act according to the rules of the Mathematical Society. Let him say what kind of question. Blair said his question is very simple. If the sides of a square are equal to 1, then what is the diagonal? The Viscount was surprised and Brittany asked Blair if he didn't know that the Howard family put forward the Howard theorem. The Viscount replied that according to Howard's theorem, if the sides of a square are equal to 1, then the square of the length of the diagonal will be equal to 2. This is true. Blair shook his head and said that he did not answer his question. He was not asking about the square of the diagonal, but about the diagonal itself. The Viscount clenched his teeth in anger and one of the guests said that he had not thought about the diagonal itself. Another guest said that he could probably show them that too. The Viscount fell silent and Blair thought that everything was as he had expected. He knew about this number from the beginning. In his world, although scientists are respected, no one knows about them. People prefer to listen to gossip about celebrities than to learn about scientists who have contributed to the progress of mankind. In this same world, although science is at a low level, scientists are very revered. Here people respect knowledge even more than magic. Scientists who have made major contributions to science enjoy not only international fame, but also the respect of the royal family and aristocracy. Therefore, scientists come together, take control of economics and politics, and become a huge force. The Mathematical Society is one such force. The Howard family occupies an important position in the mathematical community, so the community has a significant say. Even the head of Yabo City, Father Isabella, must give the Howard family due respect. The Mathematical Society includes scientists, politicians, and religions. They believe that everything on Earth can be represented in the form of numbers. In fact, their ideas are similar to those of the Pythagorean school. The school of Pythagoras was founded by the great scientist of ancient Greece. The school of Pythagoras had many followers, but there was one flaw in it that led to the disappearance of the school. This flaw was that they presented everything not in real, but in rounded numbers. Pythagoras believed that if you compare round and real numbers, you can express all the numbers in the world. Hippasus, a student of Pythagoras, was the first to discover this. He realized that it was impossible to express the diagonal of a square using the ratio of integers. This discovery shook the foundation on which the entire school of Pythagoras was based. When the students realized that they could not solve this problem, they decided to deal with the one who put forward this problem. In the end, they tied a large stone to Hippasus and threw it into the sea. But the truth could not be hidden for a long time. More and more people began to pay attention to the problem of Hippasus, and the school of Pythagoras was destroyed. Numbers that could not be expressed using whole number ratios came to be called irrational numbers. From then on, people began to expand their knowledge of numbers, and it grew into a field. Judging by the Viscount's expression, he had long known about the existence of irrational numbers. He wonders how people in this world treat Hippasus. The Viscount wiped away his cold sweat and one of the guests said that it was strange. Why can't she find this number? Another mathematician said that this is impossible. There cannot be a quantity that cannot be expressed by a number. What it is? Brittany asked Blair what's wrong with this number. Can't this be expressed in any number? Blair replied that this is a completely new number and there are many of them. In this world, someone had already found a similar number, but this discovery was hidden. But thanks to the help of Phage, this discovery will become known to people. Phage looked at his father and noticed that his hands were shaking with anger. He got scared, and then cursed and, looking at Blair, shouted that it was all because of him. He attacked him and told him to die. He clenched his hand into a fist to hit him and Blair prepared for the blow. But at the last moment Phage's hand was grabbed by a girl and he exclaimed, "Who else is she? Let him go." The girl apologized to him and said that she had to stop him. Phage tried to break free, but he couldn't and he thought, she seems to be a woman, but her hand is so strong. Suddenly his father's voice came from behind him. He called out to him and asked, does he think he hasn't done enough today? Phage turned around in fear and the Viscount turned to his guests, asking forgiveness for the trouble that his son had caused them today. It's his fault, he'll be stricter with him in future. As for the number that Blair mentioned, don't worry, their mathematical society will do their best to find an explanation. He thanked Blair for his explanation and said that he still had work to do and had to leave. He gritted his teeth and said that he hoped he would have a pleasant evening at his estate. Blair thanked him in return and said that he too wished him a pleasant evening. He thought the Mathematical Society could find an explanation. He doesn't think they will succeed so easily. The Viscount left, leading his son with him and thought that he did not expect that this break was disgracing their family. After that, Blair thanked the girl who helped him and called her mistress. She asked, did he say madam? Did he forget her? Is he that callous? Suddenly Isabella slapped him in the face and exclaimed why he opens his hands to strangers. Blair replied that he didn't do that at all. What does it mean to strangers? He didn't do anything to her either. The girl laughed and apologized for disturbing their advances, she was just joking. But they have such a good relationship, she's even jealous. Isabella exclaimed, who is flirting here? It's not what she thought. She called her Alice and asked what she was doing here. In response, Alice asked, did Brittany's teacher not tell them? She always participates in this, but she sees her here for the first time. Brittany said that the Alice family is very well known in the mathematics community in Yabo City and has been participating in the workshop on behalf of her family for many years. Alice extended her hand to Blair and said that she would introduce herself. Her name is Alice. She is in her 3rd year at Chandanasa Academy, Isabella's classmate. She's pleased to meet him. She hopes her joke didn't offend him. Blair reciprocated and Alice leaned over, examining him closely. Blair's gaze fell into her chest and she said that he performed great today. She sees for the first time how the Howard family has turned from arrogant and pompous to so pathetic. Can they study mathematics in depth with him? Blair apologized and said he had to refuse. Let her better ask the teacher for advice because he learned a lot from her. Alice smiled and said that he couldn't be figured out so easily. She said goodbye to him and said that when no one was around, they would chat some more. Blair said goodbye to her and Isabella indignantly asked what does it mean when no one is around, they will chat. Brittany said goodbye to Alice and Isabella told Blair that he immediately forgot about everything. She sees he didn't mind going with her. Blair turned around and asked why he should go with her. Isabella pointed her finger at him and exclaimed that they were all the same. They would see a beautiful girl and immediately run after her. Blair scratched his nose and calmly asked if she could compare to her. Isabella blushed and replied that maybe, and he thinks she's prettier. Blair confirmed her words and she began to feel even more embarrassed, thinking that he was such a fool. But if he meant not the figure but the face, then it sounds good. Suddenly Calvin came up to them and greeted them. Brittany smiled at him and asked what he was doing here. Calvin replied that he was the main character of the evening. He could not even say hello. Blair replied that he simply helped them solve the problem, and at the same time mentioned one number. Calvin replied that the problem he solved and the number he mentioned were not simple at all. The Howard family considered the riddle of the 7 bridges to be their pride. Today he said that this riddle has no solution. This has led to the fact that the position of the Howard family in mathematical society is now in great doubt. And the number he was talking about, the Mathematical Society solves complex problems with numbers, but now they cannot find only a segment using the number. Can this number really be found? If not, then the whole society, no, even the whole world of mathematics will be shaken. So he wants to ask him, who is he? Why did such talent suddenly appear only now? What is his goal? Blair smiled and asked what he was talking about. Everyone saw how Phage asked him to solve a problem. He just had an idea and voiced it. As for that number, this is pure curiosity. And didn't Howard say that he would definitely find this number together with the Mathematical Society? Calvin agreed and said that he had imagined it. Let him not worry, their society is always on the side of truth. But he better be careful with the Howard family. He is afraid he should not compete with them. Meanwhile, the Viscount sat on a chair in front of his beaten son, who was lying on the floor. Phage was breathing heavily from the blows he had just dealt, and the Viscount's subordinate said that everything was ready. They could begin. The Viscount replied that they would wait until he left the estate. Just like before, let him make it look like an accident, no one should see it. His subordinate bowed to him and suddenly the Viscount's second son said that he was killing again. The blond young man stood behind his father and smiled. The Viscount turned around and calling him Abel, asked if it was him again. The Viscount's subordinate looked at Abel in surprise and said that this was impossible, he did it with his own hands. Abel came closer and said that their surprise was normal. After all, he himself ordered, like this time. Abel approached Phage and the Viscount, jumping up from his chair, asked why he didn't die. Why did he appear again? This Blair, is he his man? Abel said that he is so cruel and sets a bad example for his son. The Viscount pulled out a revolver and told him to answer the question. Phage looked at his brother in surprise and Abel replied that he was asking too many questions. He doesn't know where to start. He stood up and said that he would tell. That young man named Blair is not related to him in any way, but he had an excellent reason to return. What will he do? He can tell him that he is going to completely change the Howard family. The Viscount asked again, is he going to change their family? Abel confirmed his words and asked what he thinks is the basis of their family. The Viscount replied that, of course, glory. Abel disagreed and said it was a hoax. The Viscount asked in what sense. Abel smiled and asked, isn't that so? He knew it himself, the problem of bridges could not be solved, and that was the number. In order to protect the glory of their family in the name of the Mathematical Society, he wants to hide this truth. All these years, when people appeared who wanted to reveal the truth, he got rid of them in various ways, including him. Even his own son was no exception. The Viscount shouted that this was enough. He pointed the revolver at him again and said that for the sake of his family he would kill him again. Abel said he had already crossed the line. Does he remember what he told him? The truth cannot be hidden forever. Someday someone will discover the truth and destroy this family based on lies. Today that guy named Blair has already done it. He brought them to light in front of the mathematicians of the entire city of Yabo. He can deal with Blair, but can he really kill all the witnesses? He grabbed his father's revolver by the barrel and pointed it straight at his chest, and then said that if he could not do this, then tomorrow the truth would appear before the entire state. Their family name will be destroyed, and everything in mathematical society will be turned upside down. The Viscount's hand trembled and Abel asked if he could then support the existence of their family. The Viscount let go of the revolver and asked what should he do then. Abel smiled and replied that he would become the head instead of him, then he would change their family and Howard would continue to exist. He put his hand on his father's shoulder and said that he should know that except for him, no one will save this family. The Viscount remained silent, and then his son whispered something in his ear. A few days later, Blair's house. Blair woke up to the alarm and thought that sleeping in this bed was so comfortable, there was no terrible smell like in that closet. He came out of his room and said good morning. He noticed a huge stack of papers on the table and was very surprised, thinking that it looked like she had been looking for the number all night again. After the seminar, news of the theory of the unsolvable problem spread throughout the mathematical community in the country, and the reputation of the Howard family began to be greatly doubted. But in comparison with the unsolvable problem of 7 bridges, the number that could not be found in any way began to be called the devil's number in the mathematical community. What a cool name. Almost all mathematicians in society began to try to find the devil's number, but no matter how hard they tried, nothing came of it. This is understandable. In this world, mathematics has not reached the level where it is possible to express physical values, and physics is a completely new field for them. But even so, in this world scientists are highly respected. They continue their search even in the dead of night. He believes that someday they will be able to find the answer. Now it's as if they have found themselves in another reality, even if they make a lot of mistakes, but in the end they will reach the truth. He sat down at the table and began to read the newspaper. On the first page he noticed the news that the head of the Howard family had changed. Will the new head dissolve the Mathematical Society? Blair thought that leaving the Mathematical Society would be the best decision for the Howard family. But why would they take such radical measures? This new head seems to be out of his mind. And what is this new chapter? Brittany approached him and wished him good morning. Blair wished her the same in return and saw that she was standing in front of him in a nightie. She came up and asked if she hadn't asked him to wake her up when he got up. Blair replied that he forgot. Brittany pointed her finger at his cheek and said he was a naughty boy. He says this every time, and about that number, he knows something, but he doesn't say it. Blair blushed and asked her to stop teasing him. His nose began to bleed and Brittany thought, is he bleeding? What is she wearing? Suddenly she realized that she was standing in front of him in a nightie and shouted that he was a pervert. After that, there was a loud bang and now Blair's face bore a red mark from her palm. After that, Blair began to prepare breakfast, and Brittany changed clothes and looked at him guiltily. She apologized to him and asked if it still hurt. She did it subconsciously. Blair said he noticed that when she first woke up, she was a completely different person. She pulled her hair into a ponytail and asked if he didn't like her this morning. Blair disagreed and replied that he liked her even when she woke up, even in her normal state. He added seasonings to the dish and Brittany was very surprised, and then thanked him, and he, breaking an egg into the frying pan, thought that now he had definitely said everything correctly. She asked what he was cooking. Why does he fry eggs and red fruits, which can be eaten anyway, together? Blair replied that he was making an omelet with tomatoes. She asked again, omelet with tomatoes. He put breakfast on a plate and said that tomatoes are the name given to red fruits in his hometown. Almost everyone there knows how to cook an omelet with tomatoes. He thought that this was all he had been eating lately. After that, he left the house and said that he had already prepared it, let her try it, and he would go to class. She asked him to wait and then walked over to him and started wiping the crumbs off his clothes. Blair looked at her in surprise, and after that she said that everything is fine now, let him be careful. Blair left, and after that Brittany went back into the house and looked at the omelet and thought it looked strange. Is this really edible? She tried the omelet and was very surprised, thinking that she had never tried anything like it. The taste of tomatoes is so sweet, what bliss. It's incredibly delicious. After a while, Blair reached the academy and his stomach began to growl, and he thought that while he was cooking, he had completely forgotten about himself. He didn't even eat. After a while, girls crowded into the audience and one of them asked her friend, did she read the school newspaper? The head of the Howard family changed. He ordered the dissolution of the Mathematical Society. The girl replied that of course she had read. They say the new head is young and handsome, he is very mysterious. Their friend said with a smile that who is truly mysterious is the man who spoke about the 7 bridges of the royal capital, mentioned the number of the devil, and then disappeared without a trace. Their friend wanted to ask who this man was, but her friend said that her uncle from the Mathematical Society said that he was about the same age as them, and he himself asked to hide the name. But how is this possible? He shocked the whole world with one word, and he is their age. She doesn't believe it. What if she says he's just a secretive old guy? Meanwhile, Blair was sitting nearby at a desk, and Isabella stood nearby. She turned to him and asked, is he listening to what she says? She asked him, does he really not know how to find this number? Blair replied that he said he didn't know anything. Isabella exclaimed that this couldn't be true, he was definitely deceiving her. Suddenly Alice entered the audience and asked Isabella, is she bothering her Blair again? She said good morning to Blair and then blew him a kiss, and Isabella asked if she wasn't in her 3rd year. Why did she come? And why is Blair her? Blair said good morning. Alice and Blair's classmates perked up. They looked at the girls and one of them said that these were the most beautiful girls of the 3rd year, Isabella and Alice. The other guy said they came to Blair's. How did this guy get so lucky? Is he really that popular among girls? Jasmine noticed them and Alice leaned over to Blair and asked what they were talking about. About that, suddenly Blair's stomach growled with hunger and he awkwardly looked away. He apologized to them and Alice laughed. Isabella looked at Blair and asked displeasedly, is he a pig? It's not even lunchtime yet. Suddenly Alice handed Blair a bun and said that she accidentally took an extra portion today. Will he help her eat it? Blair looked at the delicious bun with sparkling eyes and agreed, saying that she was a good person. But suddenly Isabella pinched his cheek and told him not to do it. How can he accept food from someone else? Blair replied that he wanted to refuse, but the bun smelled so good. Isabella got angry and asked if he was hungry, then why didn't he ask her? In response, he asked if she herself had not called him a pig. Isabella exclaimed that it didn't matter, it was his fault, she was the first to come. Alice told Isabella that Blair is a genius, it's normal that she shows sympathy for him and wants to help. Isabella gritted her teeth in irritation, and then handed Blair her food and told him to take it. She also took an extra portion, let him give this bun to her. Blair looked at the sandwich and agreed. Alice asked why she decides for Blair. As far as she knows, Blair is not yet in an official relationship with her. Isabella got really angry and then told Blair to choose. Will he take her sandwich or bun, Alice? He can only choose one. Alice said that it doesn't matter what he chooses, the main thing is that he likes it. Blair thought he just wanted to eat in peace. Sparks began to sparkle between Alice and Isabella, and Blair just smiled awkwardly. Blair chose a sandwich and thanked Isabella. She was happy and said that it means he liked her sandwich better. Suddenly Blair stuffed a bun and a sandwich into his mouth at once and his cheeks puffed out. Then he swallowed it with difficulty and said that the sandwich and bun were all delicious. Thanks to both of them. Everyone looked at Blair in shock and Isabella said that the sandwich was really so tasty. He gobbled it up so quickly. Alice noticed the remnants of cream on Blair's cheek and wiped it with her finger and then licked it and said what he had left here, he's so sloppy. She kept licking her fingers, saying that her bun was so delicious, and Isabella exclaimed, what does that mean? Suddenly the bell rang and Alice said that it was time for them to go to school. She said goodbye to Blair and told him to study well. Blair said goodbye to her, and then Isabella pointed her finger at him and said that she had gone and let him wait for her in the classroom after class. She left the audience, slamming the door loudly, and Blair sighed in relief, thinking that they had finally left. Suddenly his friend pinched his cheek and asked when he had time to meet Alice. Blair replied that a few days ago, in the evening. Toby exclaimed, in the evening. Blair asked what he was up to there. A few days ago, Brittany's teacher took him to a Mathematical Society seminar where he met Alice. Toby asked, was he at the seminar a few days ago? Is that where they started talking about the number of the devil? Blair ignored him and said that Brittany's teacher had arrived. After that, Blair went to the board and started writing the problem, and Brittany said that they could try different methods of solving it. The most common method was this. Now let them divide into groups and try to solve the problem from the board. She nudged Blair with her elbow and called out to him quietly. He turned around and saw that she was handing him bread. Then she said that he forgot to have breakfast today. This is for him, let him eat. Blair looked at the bread and thought that he had been given bread again. After that he joined the group and Toby asked where he got this bread from. Blair replied that it would take a long time to talk about this, it would be better for them to discuss the problem. Suddenly a girl from their group jumped up from her chair and told Blair that Toby had said that he had participated in a mathematical society seminar. Then he definitely saw that mysterious man. The newspaper writes that just at the seminar, in front of everyone, he solved the problem of the 7 bridges of the royal capital, and then he talked about the number of the devil. Blair glanced sideways at Toby and asked, "Is this true?" He can say what he saw. The girl tilted her head to the side and asked, "Can he tell?" Jasmine looked at Blair suspiciously and he said that when that mysterious man appeared, he had just gone out on business. And when he returned, he already told about the number of the devil, there were so many people there, he didn't see him. The girl asked, "Did he have anything to do at the most important moment?" Blair replied that he had eaten too much and his stomach hurt. There was silence between them and Toby said that his stomach hurt at such an important moment. He did not take advantage of this opportunity. The girl asked what he was talking about. In any case, Blair had the chance to participate in a mathematical society seminar. The most important people of the city of Yabo gather there. If he meets a couple of them, that's already wonderful. She smiled and asked Blair if he had any free time. Maybe they can do math together. She had so many questions. She has a very big house. If they get tired, they can sleep right there. Toby asked, "Is this how she wants to learn math?" He exposed her. The girl exclaimed, "Shouldn't she study mathematics?" All this time Jasmine was silent and scrolled through suspicions in her head. After finishing classes, Blair went out into the corridor and said that it's good that he is very fast, otherwise Isabella would catch him again. These girls are still annoying. He'd better practice magic, that's more important. He needs to keep his magic at a good level. Suddenly someone asked when he became so interested in magic. He saw a hooded man in front of him, and then this man put a weapon to his throat and Blair asked who it was. In front of him he saw Jasmine, who was hiding her face under a hood. She told him not to twitch, the dagger was very sharp. Blair raised his hands and asked what she was doing. She said that if she was not mistaken, then it was he who spoke about the 7 bridges of the royal capital and the number of the devil at that seminar. And his skills in magic and mathematics have grown very much. He is not Blair, he does not have such talents. Let him say where is Blair. Who is he? Why is he pretending to be him? Blair